Welcome to the Digital Dish, where we serve up fresh insights on how technology is bridging the gap between the physical and the digital, creating seamless and personalized interactions for businesses and consumers alike. Let's dig in. We're here to talk all things digital, physical, everything in between. So I'm Courtney Radke, and I'm joined as always by my awesome co-host here, Ivy. Ivy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm getting rolling. It is extremely cold in a lot of the United States, and
Yeah.
one of those places happens to be Lincoln, Nebraska. So I'm trying to stay warm and so just trying to make it through, but doing well, doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's freezing where I'm at as well, and I'm in Oklahoma City, and it
Yep.
gets cold here. Not as cold as north
Right.
where you're at. I'm from
Right.
Nebraska. I
Yeah.
know the cold, but we're in
Yeah.
single digits, and we're below
Yeah.
that threshold with the wind. So that's
Yeah.
cold. That's
It is
cold here.
cold. It
So
is cold. Single digits is cold, and then when you put a negative in front of it, your
yeah,
face just hurts. You know?
pretty much.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So keeping warm. Let's keep warm, and
yeah.
somehow I don't know how we always do this, right? We get back to coffee.
We do get
It's our
back to
happy.
coffee.
It's our comfort zone, and
It is.
the topic of the day, and it's coming out of some big shows, and just what 2025 is going to hold
It
is
Yeah.
AI and practical uses. And speaking of coffee, this may be a practical use. I don't know. Maybe we're too early. I'm a little tired of my coffee maker. I like it.
Okay.
It's it
All
was
right.
just, it was a
All
new
right.
thing. I graduated from Keurig and an espresso and some other things, and then
Yep.
hand press and all that.
Yep.
But there's an AI coffee maker out there now.
Oh.
Hear me out. It's pretty cool, right? So it learns your preferences, everybody else's preferences, and that's kind of just machine
Okay.
learning and clever programming. But
All
I was
right.
reading on this, and it's got a spectral sensor, so spectroscopy, right? And so it analyzes the
Spectroscopy.
coffee as it's coming out and determines the exact levels. They say exact levels of caffeine that's needed for you, and then it just kind
Oh.
of builds off of that. So
All right.
I have
All right.
zero idea how much it costs. I know that it's really, really cool. It may be an extreme gimmick, but again, AI, coffee, comfort zone. But that's what we're going to be chatting about today is kind of AI in the retail, restaurant, hospitality space.
There you go. There you go. On this, we have talked about coffee and robots, coffee and now we're talking coffee and AI. I mean, I got to be honest, coffee's kind of my happy place, but part of that is also the experience, right? So,
yeah.
But what I'm really interested in as you research that coffee maker more is what happens if there's not enough caffeine? Grind more beans? Does it insert some? Like this is the challenge with that AI experience, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
that's I do look forward to hearing about how that experience goes. I will also be very interested to know if it makes a good cup of coffee. I mean, let's just be honest.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's absolutely the most important thing. So, I mean, we've come out of a couple of shows. We've come out of talking to customers, and AI is there. And I don't think we can get away from it. And honestly, we shouldn't. We should start really, really bringing it into our day-to-day conversations around. Yes, AI coffee makers are cool, but what can we do to practically use AI right now? And I'll give you an example. So we came out of a show. I heard a number of restaurant leaders chatting about what they're utilizing AI for. And if we just, boil it down to what's a comfort zone for AI right now, it's generative AI and natural learning of language, right? So language.
Yep.
So what we saw is some restaurant groups, and one was, talked about last year in the news, and then again at NRF is Wendy's, right? So they're using what they call fresh AI to in real time use natural language processing and AI to make sure that the order is correctly placed every single time, right? Because here's an interesting stat. Did you know it was something like I'm gonna murder this. It's either 2 billion or 200 billion word combinations to order a Dave's combo. Like there's so many different ways that you can order it.
Even if it's only 2 billion, that's way more than we want to deal with, right?
Right. And there's just no way somebody on the other side can be like, what did you say? And is it in my natural language? Is it in your language? Like, how does this work? So, they've partnered with a number of organizations. They've called it Wendy's Fresh AI, and I just thought that, again, interesting real world practical applications, because it's coming out of staff augmentation times. I don't have enough people to run the registers, nor should they. AI, I heard somebody say AI is never going to take your job unless you're not leveraging AI in your jobs. Meaning, if you just avoid AI, AI is going to take it over.
Yeah.
But if you embrace AI, you're going to be part of the solution of it. And so, and that's just like every other technology that we've had. But it's very interesting to me. Like, I came from Sonic.
Sure.
And there was an unfathomable amount of drink combinations. If you just take these three things, right? So it's permutations.
Yep.
So it was interesting to me to see how many ways you could, order a Dave's classic, whatever. And it's like a Baconator. Now you add something else on there. So it's interesting to me. So that's a practical use of AI that I've seen that's out there. We're talking about, we talked about it in a previous episode. It's increasing the ability to be more efficient in your operations. That
totally.
I'm not going to get linguists in here. I'm not going to get a bunch of people that know other languages. We've got to be able to do something. So I thought that was an interesting, just start of how many more organizations are going to do that. We've seen a couple more, lean into that, but I'd be interested to see what kind of the next step is and who takes that next step in the restaurant industry using AI for something like that.
Well, and I think it's interesting. Obviously, the restaurant industry has some of those very natural capabilities to apply some of this technology. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing, though, that we're starting to see is it also naturally affect retail. And I think even what we saw, at National Retail Federation, but in talking to some of the brands, they are looking for ways to make the customer journey just a little bit easier, but maybe more importantly, a little more personalized. And I think when you look at some of the brands that are starting to utilize AI, and you start to think about, hey, I know I'm in the store, or the data says I'm in the store, on average 3 or 4 times during a month, and I'm buying this 80% of the time. I'm buying this 25 items if I'm going to grocery or I'm going to big box retail. Is that an opportunity to ease the pain of the way that I'm buying through that process? And one of the things that actually comes to mind is not really AI driven, but it came from the data that they got from AI. Someone was presenting on Tesco recently in the UK, and they were talking about one of the ways that they saw a massive rise in the number of bananas they were selling. And one of the things they did was, when you buy a pack of bananas, they're all together, right? They've all been picked at one point in time. Mm-hmm. Those bananas grew together. They are ripening together. They also go bad relatively at the same rate. Tesco said, hey, let's take the data, instead of having people tear apart bunches or whatnot, let's actually package groups of 6 bananas. One end of the 6 is fairly ripe, right? Almost at the end of its life. And the other end of that spectrum is extremely needs to ripen. It's extremely green. Mm-hmm. And the 4 in between are a sliding scale down, right, to ripeness. They saw double-digit growth in banana sales. Yeah. Because people were buying bananas where they knew, like, oh, there's one for today, and then that one will be for tomorrow. And then by the time I get 6 days out, this one that's still very green is going to be ripe for me. That's a fascinating thought process, but they did that utilizing just generalized data of buying.
Yeah.
Right? And listening to customer data, right? Customer feedback. Is there opportunities where AI can play that sort of role in the customer buying journey to ease that process and make it more efficient and in the end, a better experience, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. So I wasn't following at first. I thought you were like, this 6 is, ripe. This 6 is, just right. Or just, So, but they actually bagged different types in the same bag.
They do. They literally bag different types in the same bag.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, double-digit growth, but there's something there that something or someone has to package it that way. So
Absolutely.
I'd be interested to see what the revenue is. But it's an interesting concept. But it's right product at right time and being able to spot these anomalies. AI or just learning systems are so much better at that. People can spot similarities and correlate things, but not on that level. I mean, who's going to think about bananas, right?
Right.
So that's interesting. But what I have seen, talking about like food spoilage and things like that is, AI integrated into computer vision, and it can spot telltale signs of wilt or colors, all of these things to say this product needs to be shifted. We need to move this out. And based off of us knowing that this lifespan of this product, we're also going to tell you need to order replacements to be in by this day. So it's the inventory management and stock and spoilage management through things like computer vision that are really becoming again more operational efficiency going into these locations. So AI, right? Using data, predictability, and some of those things. I've been looking at it a lot from the network standpoint. That's my forte, and really being able to bandwidth is kind of like a commodity as well. It's got a shelf life sometimes if you use too much of it. And so we've started to see some very, very interesting uses of AI and some other technologies to predict and then allocate bandwidth accordingly as well, right? I know that this event happens every year, or this is an LTO, or this is just regular peak times, and we're not really good about using our bandwidth in our network. So using AI to create rules, shift traffic, move things around accordingly, and that's in support of the customer experience, because what we've seen is there's a much heavier prevalence of customers wanting to have really quick internet everywhere they go, whether it's a grocery store, whether it's a coffee shop, whether it's a restaurant. You want to stream the game, you want to swipe through Instagram or whatever your social media platform of choice is, and when they don't have that, it's an extreme detriment. And you start to see it at the bottom line of revenue, because having a fast internet connection not only creates a good experience for the customer, but having like a open Wi-Fi network that's really fast. Think about the hotels you stay at or don't stay at, because I know their Wi-Fi sucks. Or the coffee shops, if you got to get work done, you're like, you know what? You struggle to get online here. I make decisions now around, I know I'm not going to be able to get work done, and I know that I'm not going to have an enjoyable experience here. So these are these things that they're looked at as, well, they're going to have Wi-Fi. They're going to have, but a network here may not be the same as a network here. And we're seeing a lot of organizations leveraging different tools to use it as a differentiator, AI kind of being one of them.
Do you think, and to capitalize on that, and actually I just listened to a presentation in like the last 24 hours about some market insights from Avixa, which is an audiovisual organization. And I'll speak about that in a second, but I want to ask a question about what you just said, which is, do you think there's a place where AI starts to help manage actively that bandwidth usage matrix, or do you see it still in the realm of, hey, it augments what we know, we can get to decision trees faster, but the management is still secondary just based on what the manufacturers and capabilities are in the software and hardware?
I see a world where AI and the backend systems, machine learning, are managing everything. AI take the wheel, right? If you think about it, and I wrote something about this, in a upcoming blog or a newsletter type thing, and it's really about think about when you're traveling, and until recently. Last couple of years, I didn't necessarily trust everything that Google Maps was telling me. Sometimes it would take me on a weird route, but over the last couple of years, it's gotten so good that I find myself doubting, right? Am I making the right decision? Am I taking this shortcut, or like, nah, this isn't taking me in the right direction. We're going to go this way. Right. 2 minutes later, I'm stuck in a traffic jam. I'm cursing everything internally. Externally, I'm like, Google was wrong. This is so. The AI engines, and they've seen it all. They're taking disparate, feeds from your network, from anonymously other people's networks, from everything that these manufacturers have seen, and they're getting really, really smart about building these things in. So it's really your network GPS. It knows where to route traffic based off of these patterns that it's seen 100 times, based off of traffic that you cannot see, but it can see on the other end, right? So that I do see it coming to that point, and I see it coming very, very soon. You know, how a customer is able to leverage it, how a managed service provider or you know, large businesses are able to leverage it now, maybe not necessarily at scale right away, but in specific areas of the network. One for, you know, initial setup and testing, baselining, so you can really, really get a good, you know, baseline, and then you can go design it. You can go manually put these things in with some automation. But at some point, we're going to see it learn and be good enough to run a majority of your network and make those decisions for you. And it not just from a network standpoint. Now that then I dovetail into, we were talking about it earlier before this, security risks, right? All of the vulnerabilities that are constantly out there. How do you keep up with all of them? Well, you know, a lot of times you can't patch everything right away. A lot of times you can't even spot all of these, you know, security events right away. So now you have an AI engine or something on the back end building compensating controls. So I know you can't fix this right now, but we can create this compensated control over here. We can shift traffic. We can lock down this access. So it's not just, you know, your GPS from a network standpoint. Now this is a GPS. It's keeping me out of that accident. It's keeping me safe and secure. So I do see a world very soon. I would say, Ivy, within the next 5 years, we'll see the first small or even large scale customer networks. 90% run by an AI engine and some of these other things. There's oversight. There's people there. Again, it's not taking people's jobs because the people are leveraging AI. But I'll see it we'll see it within the next 5 years. Businesses that are almost completely running their networks using some sort of AI driven network.
And I think you actually hit on something right at the end there that's very key. So, you know, I think you and I have talked about this. Many of our colleagues know this. My family background on one side of my family is actually in large scale robotics, manufacturing robotic systems. And, you know, 30, 40 years ago, the discussion was all in the shops about how the robots were going to take everybody's job. And what has subsequently happened is, A, there's really actually probably more jobs, but B, there are better quality jobs. And yet the manufacturers are getting actually more product out because the robots are much more efficient. The systems are much more efficient. I think the things you just talked about with regards to the AI manifestation in that monitoring capability becomes really, it heightens the level of capability versus taking away what is maybe being done today. I think that also is relative. I referenced a few minutes ago Avixa. So for some of you, Avixa is a very common name, but Avixa is an AV organization. They run a couple of shows, one of which I'm attending here in a bit, in a couple of weeks with ISC in Barcelona. But one of the things they do is they do a fair amount of market analysis. And in their 2024 kind of post report, they are showing managed services and AI coming together. And I find that very, very interesting from that perspective of they are finding ways to say, hey, as monitoring of devices, visual devices, screens and media players and cellular devices and whatnot, and then also content and content playback and even content creation, how in the coming weeks, months, or years does AI start to affect that? And I found it interesting. They did not just call it out as, hey, everybody's talking about it. They're saying, hey, we're starting to see how this becomes part of the greater AV ecosystem.
Yeah, that's where we're at, Ivy. We're done with talking about it. I think there's enough out there from an AI standpoint, real practical uses of AI. I talked about this at the recent NRF show. I've talked about this over the last several weeks. Of 2025 is we're going to hit that inflection point of AI has some practical use cases. You talked about it there of it taking disparate feedback inside of the AV type environment and running things automatic, things like that. In the network environment, you used to have to manually set up a dashboard and do your KPIs and what is the most important information that I want to see, what indicates that I'm healthy. Now all I have to do is type or talk into a prompt. I want to see a dashboard that gives me a good sense of health of my global network, as well as letting me spot individual issues of sites. Boom. It's created. It's done. And suggesting this would actually be another dashboard that you'd like. Do you want to, have this from a financial standpoint? Is this, who is the target audience? And then crafts these different dashboards out there. There's a number of, new network providers, new network OEMs, as well as some of our tried and trues that are building in this AI learning, natural language learning model, because we're so much better able to articulate an idea, either be typing or, voicing it out, than searching through what capabilities exist today. Than just saying, what do you want? And can it build it for you? Yes. And there's technologies out there that are doing that. And what it's doing is it's twofold. It's making things easier. It's lowering that barrier of entry so organizations can get in and get the exact information that they want. And it's making things much more quick to do that. Is it making people late? Maybe. I'm a little bit, I had to struggle through and warrior phase, all my certifications, everything. Now, for talking to a prompt and you get all that information, but it's good. It's great. And I would say, just humorous there of, I had to get all the certs and all these things and, go up through the ranks. But I will say, much like most things, AI, right? If you just bring it in from, outside looking in, it's kind of like if you go to a new accountant or your new money guy and you just hand him all your papers from 20 years ago, receipts with, coffee stains on them, back to coffee and all these things. They look at this and they're like, what do you want me to do with this? There's no semblance of organization. These are from 20 years ago. I don't know if this is valuable or not valuable to do. What's critical? What intent do you want me to have? So that's kind of, where AI is at right now as well. It's if you don't got that good foundation, AI or whatever you leverage on top of that, it's going to amplify the chaos. So, it's good for setting baselines when you don't have one. But if you've already got all this mess and muck out there, I would say try to clean it up a little bit and then be very prescriptive on what you want to do with it first. Do the little things, don't do giant, large things, and let it build, grow, learn your environment. And then, it's going to provide some very, very meaningful, actionable impact for your organization.
Yeah, and I think actually that's a key takeaway here, which is this idea of AI is the universe of AI has become so large, it's almost untenable to understand, right? And I think that's where also sometimes fear comes from, right? People look at it and they go, I don't know, AI is scary because I don't know what to do with it. But you commented there about starting small and getting really purposeful outcomes. If we kind of close on that from a sweet treat perspective, if brands, if restaurants, if retailers are thinking about AI, especially in network management, but also in digital signage management, I think mine will probably align with yours. What are those places that people should start that are a very reasonable hill to walk up versus going and trying to climb Everest right now, right? What are those one or two things? And is it just about definition because then the AI will let you build it? Or do you need to take some specific steps in your opinion?
I think you can take it from both approaches. You can be very specific about it, but it is, it's really good about picking out data that was unknown before and now making it, that's valuable data. So I still think come at it with this is the problem that I want to solve. Don't think it's going to solve every problem. It's not a magic one. If there are, you're leveraging an AI or any tech, just think of any technology. You don't buy technology that you think is going to solve some problem that you don't know about. You're getting it to solve a specific problem or a set of problems you have. Leverage this as a tool the same way. Maybe you just didn't know how to solve it before, and maybe you weren't asking the right questions. Maybe now you don't have to ask the right questions. You just give it a bunch of different data and say, how do I solve this problem with this data that I have today? Or do I need to find other data? So I would still come at it from let it answer some questions for you, fill in some gaps. It's, it's a Band-Aid over the top of some stuff. But if you're very, very prescriptive and you have a very, very specific problem to solve, there's a lot of times where AI just allows you to get to that answer a lot more quickly. You would have got there eventually, right?
Yeah.
But it can get there much more quickly to free you up to do the more important things in your business. So that's where I would start, because the more of those things, that's the laws of compounding interest. The more of the small things, the minutia that you have it do that churn and take care of for you, and it's doing 90% of a good job. Now you just have 10% oversight.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now I can really start rolling, right? And get really down to business and get operationally efficient, because I'm leveraging AI for the small things, and then start to let it drive and take over some of the big things.
Yeah. And I might say one addition to that, but it's in the same vein, which is, what are those things that feel like they're keeping you up at night? What are those things that you wake up and you go, I don't really know how to solve that? Can you solve that with AI without having to change the rest of what you've already decided? I think that's a key piece there. Well, with that, I think the real test of AI will be your new coffee maker, if you decide on that.
I'm looking at it.
Right, I will look forward to hearing about the AI-based coffee. But in the meantime, we will also go find some really great solutions out there for AI and see if we can help customers and our organization with using this data that's out there. So.
Fair. I'll have the first cup, and then I'll tell you if it's working.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Court. Great conversation.
All right. Great chatting as always. Thanks, IV.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to The Phygital Dish, where physical and digital worlds collide to transform industries and consumer experiences. We hope today's episode gave you the insight you need to stay ahead in this evolving landscape. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and join us next time for another serving of industry advice and innovations from the intersection of technology and business. And remember, stay inspired, keep innovating, and we'll catch you next time.